Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter here for the next 20 minutes. Today we are talking about posted batches. So let's get into donations. And posted batches is where all of the different giving and the batches that you've entered into the software, whether it be manual entry through Enter Donations or whether you imported them through Vanco or another type of online giving platform, you can see all of those organized batches up here in posted batches. So up at the top under donations, posted batches, and it's going to show you every batch, it's organized by date, every batch that you've entered so far, okay? It's going to default to the current period, so it's going to default to the current year. Of course, you can click in these boxes and type in a different date or use the down arrow and use the calendar to get to different dates. You also have a minus year plus year button. These are kind of popping up all over the software. You can hit the minus year button or the plus year button to get back and forth to different time frames. Also, if you click in here and change these dates specifically, make sure you hit the apply dates button. That's what's going to trigger those dates to be set. Okay. Now, over here on the left is all of your dates. All right, so batches that are posted in church windows are organized by date. If when entering donations or importing from online giving, you assign a batch code, those will be shown in this column, this code column. That's your batch code column. Your total for the batch at a quick glance is going to be here, obviously in your total column. Here's your cash breakdown, your check breakdown, and then the number of entries. All right, so this is the number of transactions you're going to have within that batch is listed here in this number of entries column. Down here at the bottom, you're going to have your grand totals, okay? So your grand total here and here and here, all right? Now, and then their total number of transactions as well. Now, a couple of things I want to also show you as well. Over here on the left under date, if you hit the little plus sign, you do have the ability then to see the details of the batch. Okay, so the details of the batch then under giver is going to show you every person that made a donation thus far, along with the amount they gave, the check or reference number, any donation comments that you put in, their payment method, and then the date posted. The date posted, folks, is the date that you were actually sitting at the computer and hit the post button. Okay, so this is going to be different from the actual donation date, which is the date you received the donations. Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. I see some people chatting in here. Heidi said, Heidi, if you can't hear, so you have to have computer audio. So if you can't hear anything, there must be an issue with your speakers because there's a large group of people here and it appears most people can hear me. Okay. And I see your question. This is a live streaming platform, so if your screen does look a little fuzzy, it might have to do with your internet speed. Sorry about that. There's not anything I can do for you here to correct that. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I wanted to make sure I didn't leave them hanging. So again, this is where you're going to see all the information for your batch. Simply by hitting the little plus or minus sign over here on the left, you can see the details of said batch. Okay, now if you're following along in the book, I am looking at donations 102, pages 28 through 35. In the book itself, it does touch on printing a batch. So down here at the bottom, you do have a print selected button. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. So I'm going to skip over this section for now, but join us tomorrow if you want help on the different types of reports you can get out of the screen. Okay. Now, a couple other things as well. If you find you have a batch that you put in and you put the whole batch in, it's just a wrong date. You accidentally clicked the wrong donation date, you posted the batch. So every transaction that you have in there, you need to change to a different date. It's very, very simple to fix that here in the posted batches screen. Okay, so something I want to point out before we go further. The difference between the posted batches screen, which is this, and the browse screen, which is this, is that the browse screen allows you to make changes or corrections to a specific transaction. Okay, so if you find you have a transaction in here and you put it to the wrong person, or one transaction got put on the wrong date, you have to make those changes here in Browse. So any changes that need to happen on a transaction by transaction basis, you have to come in here and Browse to do that. Okay, changes that need to be made to the batch as a whole. So the date for the entire batch is wrong, or the batch code used for the entire batch is wrong. Those changes you can make here in posted batches. Okay, so that's really your difference between browse and posted batches. Browse is changes per transaction. Posted batches is changes for the whole batch. All right, I get that question a lot, so I just want to make sure I'm clear with that. So if you find that this batch, we'll go with this one, should have been entered for January 1st, but it got entered for January 2nd. You can easily change this by highlighting the batch. Down here at the bottom, hit the correct batch button. It's going to open up a window and it's going to give you two options. Okay, it's going to give you the option to change the date occurred or to change the batch code. That's all you can do here. And remember, it applies to the whole thing. So we can come in here, choose the first. This is the date it should have been in here for. And you can choose OK if you just want to make the change here in donations, or if you use accounting and you need the date to send over to accounting with the new date, you can say OK and transfer. It's up to you. So I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to get a message. It's going to tell me, your corrections require that the batch be reversed and re-entered. New transaction, I cannot say that word today. New transaction numbers for correcting and reversing donations are as follows, okay? So say, okay, so now when we look in posted batches, you can see here's my new date for my correction. All right. Now, another helpful thing on this screen up here in the top left is this show reversed box. If I check this, it's then going to show me what has been reversed here. So this batch was completely reversed, which we read in that last message that popped up, and then it was re-entered for this date, okay? And you can, of course, expand it, and it's going to show you the original transaction with its date posted, and then the reversal today, which was on the 4th, which is today's date when we took this out, right? And then again, if you don't want to see those, just uncheck it. All right. Now, say you put in a batch and it just in its entirety is wrong. You just need to take the whole thing out. Definitely, you can still do that. Highlight the batch. Instead of going down to correct batch, you're going to hit reverse. Typically, when you reverse a batch, you are going to go with this option, the recommended option. This is a date occurred from the original transaction. All right. So you entered it on the 16th. We're reversing it for the 16th. All right. You do have the option to go to this Advanced Options tab, and you can change the date occurred for reversing a transaction. You can do it for today's date, or you can put in a specific date you want. I would use this with caution unless you have a specific scenario where you are wanting to reverse something for a future date. You're going to go with this recommended option. Down here at the bottom, you also have the option to put in some comments. I love putting in comments because if I forget, I have the information here of why I made the change. All right. So once you put in your comments, you can do OK and transfer, or just OK if you don't want to transfer it to accounting or you don't own accounting. And then permanently reverse, I'm going to say yes, and then it's going to take that batch out for the 16th. All right, so now it's gone from my list. If I ever need to see it again, I can check show reverse, and it's going to show up in red for me with a $0 amount. All right, pretty straightforward on that. Let's see. We talked about correcting a batch. I'm at the bottom of page 33 if you guys are following along. Again, if you find you forgot to put a batch code in, highlight the batch that you want to put the batch code in on. Down here, hit correct batch. Let's say I forgot to put that this was for my early service. Choose my batch code. I can say OK. It's going to do the corrections to my batch, and it's going to pop that batch code in there. So if you use the wrong batch code or forgot to put in a batch code, you can use the correct batch feature to do that as well. Okay. All right, another really handy feature in here that I find a lot of people aren't aware of is this group by date posted checkbox up here. So sometimes on support calls, I'll get a call and someone will say, I entered a batch, but I entered it for the wrong date. And on that wrong date, there was already a batch that existed. So it got lumped up with some other donations that should really be in there for that date. But I need to get the ones I just posted out because they weren't supposed to be there. That's where this group by date posted checkbox come in. If you check this and then you come down and you expand a batch, you will see the donation date, which is the 9th, and then you're going to see the date posted. So this is the date you actually sat at the computer and clicked post on this batch. So for example, if you had one date but 2 separate batches that you posted at 2 different times for that same date, you would have 2 date posted listed here. So you could pick the one that you accidentally posted for the wrong donation date, highlight it, come down here, hit correct batch, and then change that date occurred to the different date, the date that it should have been for. So this group by date posted is a really handy way to group your batches by the date you sat at the machine and hit the post button. So it's helpful with corrections. It's also helpful for doing research if you need to look into something or even print a report based on when you were sitting at the machine and hit post. Okay. All right, last button in here that we need to talk about is reactivating a batch for posted. So sometimes you can have a batch that maybe part of it went over to accounting, or you reversed part of the donations out of accounting and you made a change and you need to reactivate it to get it back to accounting. All right, if that's the case, so if for some reason you have a batch where all of it didn't go to accounting or it didn't show up in the transfer to accounting screen for whatever reason, this reactivate batch for transfer button down at the bottom, that forces a refresh, if you will, of the batch to then show up in the transfer to accounting screen. All right, it doesn't hurt to click this. You're not going to break anything if you click this, but what will happen is if you highlight a batch and you hit reactivate batch for transfer and there are any donations that have been changed or updated that haven't been sent over to accounting, it's going to force those to show up in your transfer to accounting screen. Okay. So again, you can click it at any time. You're not going to break it if you click on it and there's nothing to go over. But the reactivate batch for transfer button, again, it forces any donations to show up in that transfer to accounting screen so you can send them over to the accounting module. All right. There is also a refresh batches button here. I'll be honest, I don't use this very often. But if you find you've made a change on this screen, maybe you're working over a network and you don't have this screen hasn't yet refreshed for you, this refresh batches button is going to force this screen to rebuild with the most up-to-date information. Again, one of those buttons you're not going to use very often. If you click on it, it's not going to break anything. You can click on it if you wish, but it's really beneficial if you make a change and you're not seeing it refresh on the screen. You can push that and make it happen. Okay. All right, everyone, that is everything I wanted to go over with you today.